Welcome back from that video, and of course we've seen the video and the interaction between the governor and of course the expert in that particular environment yesterday. And then according to the governor, he said they paid for the aircraft around last year, around July 8 last year, and then the aircraft arrived Lagos around July 18 this month. And according to the governor, he made a promise that he will ensure that the aircraft is available in Ibadan before the end of July, and that was what happened yesterday. And also we need to talk about quite a number of things about the aircraft. The aircraft Diamond DA42MNG multi-purpose platform. They are not fighter jets, because a lot of persons are asking questions if they are fighter jets. They are designed mainly for intelligence gathering, for surveillance, for reconnaissance, more like eyes in the sky. And then one thing that I also need to reiterate this morning is the fact that it's a good development. It's going to expose us to quite a number of things, expose us to a combination of security personnel, of technology, aerial intelligence, and then it becomes combustive for the country. People are also asking questions, will it be available for state apart from Oyo State? I think that's a question that the state governor, or let me say the state government, will have to answer. And then what can they do? Speaking about this aircraft, day and night surveillance, which is very important, thermal imaging to detect its signatures, high-resolution video recording. And then the reason why this high-resolution video recording is very important is because we need high quality of videos. Just like when somebody wants to send something to you, maybe on any platform like WhatsApp, you tell them HD because you want it to be in high quality. So that's a bonus for us. Then monitoring forest and remote communities, tracking suspicious movement, live transmission of images to command centers, supporting search and rescue operations. That's also part of it. Border and highway monitoring. And then how will they improve security? That's another question that people are asking. Instead of waiting until criminals have attack certain places, just like the Oriri, and I think the governor also mentioned it, that they didn't plan for the Oriri abduction, but then it happened, but they paid for this even before the abduction, and that the amount is about 7.76 billion naira. That's a lot of money. So definitely Nigerians are hoping that it will improve the situation of this insecurity that is going on in Oyo State. So over to you, and what do you make of this particular aircraft that just arrived in Ibadan?
Well, I think, like I would always say, it's a development. I want to say a very big thank you to the state government for fulfilling what he said he was going to do. And it's, of course, a question, maybe a challenge to every other state to say, if one state is doing, well, Oyo State is known to be a pace-setter state, right? Very impressive. And now they are pace-setting in terms of security. That is exactly what we want to see. We want competition between different states. This state has done well in this, how can I better this? So everybody, let's compete and let's do well. And I think it's a fair competition to have. But I think 3 years ago, 2 years ago, if I remember, I was at the State House of Assembly in Oyo State, and the conversation was about whether or not they should clear the forest in the Oyo State, Old Oyo National Park, and some other forest zones we have in the state. And a lot of lawmakers voted for the deforestation of our environment. And I was surprised, except I remember it was the Speaker, and I'm saying this with every fact because I was correspondent in the House at the time, that he said to them that we cannot take out the trees in the forest just because hoodlums are hiding in those places. And he gave reasons. For example, the environmental situation, the ambience, the ecosystem and all of that. If you do that, you disrupt the ecosystem. And by that, you don't want to know what happened in 1980 in Oyo State, which was it was even called a national disaster. The Ogunpa flooding was as a result of some trees that were cut in a particular place. So if you are a student of research, you discover how this is important. Now, this is taking the step ahead of the lawmakers who wanted the forest to be cut. So now say, instead of cutting the forest, why don't we implement technology, surveillance to help us? And I said this just some weeks back too, that I spoke with somebody who is I think it's in the space of intelligence in the US, and he told me that these things are not as deep, that they are just normal things. There's something called thermal imagery that could help you detect the exact location, the coordinates of a particular people inside a particular place, and so you don't need to stress over it. And I think we are waking up. I think that's one of the things I would say. We are waking up to the realities that we are currently facing, and exactly 2026 is the time you think about technology, AI, innovation. You can't just sit and be waiting for your soldiers' foot on the ground to go and do it. No, that's obsolete. Like Mr. Drew also said, we need to take it a step further and do better in terms of security and all of this engagement that we're having. I love this, but I'm also praying that we have this replicated across the regions of this country, that someday security will be enhanced in our country, and then we'll be able to say, oh yes, we've done something about security, something that would bring an end to insecurity generally.
Right. Just to conclude, I think you made a very good point, speaking about Oyo State as well. And I think, part of the question that people are asking is to say, will your state partner with Oyo State in case they need something like this, maybe to borrow? I think that's a question that your state government will need to answer. But beyond that, I think it can serve as a good example to Oyo State as well. And so we've mentioned the advantages of this aircraft. I mean, numerous. We really cannot even talk about everything. And then we also need to talk about effectiveness. How can we ensure that we don't just waste money? Because I know that you can have very good equipment, but if you don't have good hands to handle that equipment, you might not really see changes like that. And then speaking about effectiveness, we must ensure that skilled operators will handle these aircraft. That is very important, because according to the governor, they arrived in Lagos July 18, and they had to wait to carry out some things before they actually brought it down to Ibadan yesterday. So skilled operators must handle this, professionals, people who have the experience, and then quick response by ground security personnel. Maintenance of the aircraft is also very important. Just like you said, it's not fighter jet. It's quite different. It can do night and day surveillance and things like that. Coordination among security agencies. There should be a symbiotic relationship, between the people that will handle the aircraft and, of course, all the security personnel, like the Amotekun, like the DSS, like the police officers. Very important. We should not just leave it to the people that will be handling this aircraft to say, we have aircraft. Why are we stressing again? No, we should not decide to say we want to rest or we want to relax because we now have the aircraft. It should there should be a synergy between the people that will be handling the aircraft and, of course, all the security personnel. That's when we can achieve much. If not, we might really not see much. And then 7.76 billion naira is a lot of money. Trust me, it's like the entire budget of some countries. Some don't even have up to that. So it's a lot of money, and then we need to make good use of it. So intelligence, just like I said, it will expose us to security personnel, and then technology, aerial intelligence. It becomes combustive. That means we have more than enough now to tackle insecurity, this menace in the society. I just want to believe that, according to the governor, they want to make sure that the right persons will handle the aircraft. And looking at it yesterday, trust me, a lot of people were very happy. Even people that are not indigent of Oyo State, they were very happy about the development, because a lot of persons were asking the governor, when will it arrive, things like that. To even mention that the governor said it will arrive before the end of July. Yesterday was 28th of July, so a lot of persons were waiting to say, okay, you said end of July, today is 28th, so we are how many more days before we are done with July? But then the aircraft arrived yesterday, and I think it's a good development. Yes, just like you mentioned, other states should also follow suit. They might not get two if they cannot afford it. They can get one, and then we should ensure that the right hands we undo the aircraft. That is very key, because if we can afford 7.76 billion naira aircraft, I want to believe that we can pay the right people that we undo this aircraft. Let's not say, oh, we want to economize. Let's hire the right people that can give us the best result. Basically, I think that's a fine place.
I will also add to that briefly, and I would say that for every development, for every innovation you see, for every aircraft that is being bought at an exorbitant price or whichever way, at a price, it was built somewhere. And that's also and those places were not, it's not Venus, it's not Mars, it's not Jupiter, it's not Uranus. It's also in this earth, this world that we are. There are countries who have devoted themselves into building this kind of thing. So they get our money, and we pay a lot of money to. I'm thinking, can we not build these things? I've been to universities across this country, a lot of universities. I've seen what we have there, and that's why a lot of persons are saying education is not helping us as much as it should in this country. Research, innovation, those are the bedrocks. If you check every universities across the world, one thing they are known for is research. One thing they are known for is to work with the government to build things that they will need. The drones detector, the drones that they are flying across Ukraine is being built somewhere in Ukraine. Why is Nigeria still celebrating? I know this is worthy of celebration, don't quote me wrong. But what I'm saying is, instead of just waiting for days for it to be assembled in Lagos, waiting for days to purchase the 7.76 billion, like I said, can we invest that into a particular, even just one university? Let's have a setup. Let's build these things. Let it be locally fabricated if we can. I know it's not impossible for us to, because if these things were coming from a country, who says it cannot come from Nigeria to the rest of Africa? Who says it cannot be produced here in Nigeria, assembled here in Nigeria, and sent to the rest of Africa? Who said Nigeria cannot stand as a supply or a supplying joint, as it were, to every other countries, even across Africa?
I think it's very possible. Yes, because we have the brains in Nigeria, and I say this all the time when I have the chance to. Despite our Hydra-headed problems as a country, we have talented people. And that's why you see Nigerians, when they travel to Europe, to North America, South America, they are doing so well in the health sector, in engineering. As a matter of fact, these people would even give Nigerian scholarship, come and study, come and carry out research. But in Nigeria here, go to the National Archive in Ibadan. You will discover that, it becomes difficult for you to have access to some archival materials to carry out research. Some will even ask you to do some kind of things. The process for some libraries, not just in Ibadan, is rigorous. And then do we have funds, for research? That's another problem. Not like we don't have the brains, except for international bodies. I have friends who are researchers, but then they do not get their funds from Nigeria or from Nigerian government. They get it from independent bodies, grants. And so they carry out this research and they send it over. So we are using our brains here to develop other countries. A friend of mine who is a researcher told me something recently that, he was told that the newspapers that we read in Nigeria, the Punch, the Nigerian Tribune, there's an archive in UK. They are storing our dailies there. Punch, Punch, Vanguard, Daily Trust mention it. And so that means that it is possible that a time will come, if care is not taken, when you need those papers, when you need the newspaper of 2010, 2015, you might need to go there if we do not plan our lives well as a country. These people are doing all they can do to make sure that they are developing every single day. Imagine these people storing our dailies in their archives, except for, let's say, because of technology that we have in Nigeria today, you can easily access some of these things online, like your X, like your Twitter, like your Facebook. We need to do more in terms of research. We have the brains. We cannot even debate that. But then, the finance, is it available? And that's what, that's another conversation, really. But because of time, we need to go this morning, but we need to appreciate you for standing with us this morning. Throughout, a big thanks to you. My name is Uluwayemi Adelako. I'm going to see you on Friday. Bye for now.
And I would say it's not expensive to carry out research, to conduct research and make development and innovation in the country. If we have the ready minds and the willpower to do it, we can achieve just about anything. My name is Oluwakpoido, saying bye for now.